Designers often fail to articulate the value they provide. Businesses don't believe in design because it's just not established yet. There are no clear ways to quantify the value of design. It's more of a creative discipline.
Thijs Kraan is a design content consultant and founder of Value Positioner. Recognizing that many designers were undervaluing their expertise, Thijs helped them shape their writing and communication to sell their skills more effectively. A leading voice on LinkedIn, he empowers designers to build their career capital and create new opportunities through his guidance on personal branding. Thijs' journey exemplifies the transformative power of recognizing one's value and helping others do the same.
The problem is that most people don't start writing because they're scared of sharing their voice online, and they need to overcome that imposter syndrome to really get the benefits they want. And that's what I started working on, to really build a framework or system people can follow. I wanted to get more people in the world who do have a lot of experience, like design leaders, to start writing about their expertise. We should be missionaries of design in a way that also provides value to the business. Design is in a weak position because I think designers often fail to articulate the value they provide. They really think about what design as a discipline does itself, or we don't really have a common ground on which we speak to other people that are not designers. And because we don't do that, we don't really articulate the value design provides to businesses. And because we don't do that, we don't get recognized for the expertise we provide to businesses. We need to get crystal clear in how we're communicating about design, because often business leaders who don't understand design are the business leaders we need to convince about design. And I think it's very important to start building a writing practice as a design leader or a designer itself to really get to that simple language. We should be missionaries of design in a way that also provides value to the business. I'm Thijs, and this is my design story. I'm Thijs Kraan, and I've been in the digital world for a very long time. I grew up just in the middle where mobile phones started becoming a hot topic and computers started becoming a hot topic. I was born in 1998. That was really where computers started rising, so I grew up. And during that, I started seeing the development of the internet, basically, through all the stages, from not having internet in a way, where there is internet, but it's not really established yet, to it becoming like one of the biggest things in the world, where everybody is on the internet and everybody has phones and everybody is on social media. I really became fascinated by the digital world. I really loved studying computers. I built computers myself, and that eventually led me to do web development, to create websites. And while creating websites, I noticed when you create a website for a client, for example, it doesn't really do anything for the business if there is no marketing. Then I started diving deeper into marketing, to how do I get people to this website? And then eventually you get people on your website that isn't designed well. It doesn't convert the people in a way you want them to convert. So that's when I really came in touch with design. And that's when I started doing a bachelor's in interaction design. And that really got me very fascinated about what design can do to the world. It's not only designing websites, it's basically designing everything around you in the world. I think that makes design very fascinating. From service design, where you really look at a hospital, for example, and see how their patient flows are and how you can optimize them so they have a better experience in the hospital, instead of just walking in, not knowing where to go, not knowing what to do, and just being intimidated by the experience of the hospital, but designing it in a way where it's still a good experience. And that's also why I would consider myself a missionary of design, because I noticed the difference design can make if it's executed well by the right people and it's implemented by the entire business. But I also know it can be very hard to implement, because a lot of businesses don't believe in design because it's just not established yet. There are no clear ways to quantify the value of design. It's more of a creative discipline. And I think that really comes because we don't really sell the value we provide. And I noticed that working in large design teams, small design teams, and just talking to over 1,000 designers over the last 5 years. And I really noticed most designers struggle with a form of imposter syndrome, and that makes it really hard for them to articulate the value they provide. Some designers are very good at this, but mostly see it's a minority. And I want to increase that amount of designers who feel comfortable talking about their expertise and sharing the value they provide, because that eventually gets the ball rolling and shows the world the value of design. And that's when I, at a certain point, started writing on LinkedIn just about design and things I saw, things I was struggling with, and that really got traction. And then I just kept on going, doing that for 30 minutes a day, publishing one post a day. And now around 750 plus days later, I really started seeing the value of writing. And I wanted to get more people in the world who do have a lot of experience, like design leaders, to start writing about their expertise. Because if people value my expertise as I was still a student back then, how would people find the experience of experienced design leaders? I think there's way more expertise to be unpacked there. And that's what I really started doubling down on. Like, how can I help these design leaders write about their expertise in a way that everybody understands? And I just found I learned a lot by doing that, just by talking to those people. And I really noticed how much they struggle articulating their expertise, because there's a lot of jargon involved. And I feel like that's a big reason why design doesn't have a good place in business in general. The problem is that most people don't start writing because they're scared of sharing their voice online. Once they do, they sometimes fail to stay consistent, or they never start because they don't really see the value of sharing expertise, even though there are many benefits. They also say they don't have time, or they don't see it as a priority in their current work, or they feel like they're risking their reputation when they start sharing their ideas online because their employer might see it and there might be a conflict, or they just think they will be well known in an instant. But if you talk to about design, it's mostly designers who start following you, or other people in the industry that you're more well known in the industry instead of like the entire world. You're not like a huge influencer if you start sharing your expertise online. And that's also most times a very long journey. And often a lot of people mention they don't know where to start. And after they start, they fail to stay consistent because they don't really have a system to do that. And that's what I started working on, to really build a framework or system people can follow or fall back on, because writing is still a very creative process, but there's also a system behind it to do it more effectively, that you're writing about the right topics towards the right people, and also write about the right expertise, because everybody has some limited form of expertise. They just have to figure out where their circle of competence is and really position around that circle, so they speak directly about their expertise. If you learn to master the art of sharing your expertise online, you will see a lot of benefits. First, by the writing process itself, you will notice that you get way clearer in the ideas you have. You will note down your ideas, you will document everything, and by documenting everything, you will slowly leave those ideas in the back of your mind, where they over time get better. You get more clear in the way you articulate to people. And once you really get the benefits from writing, all your ideas get better, your communication gets clearer, you better articulate the value you provide. And when you start publishing those ideas into the world, you will get feedback on them. You have a very short feedback cycle, because people can always give feedback. You will get conversations with people. Those conversations lead to new learnings. So it's really a positive cycle in my eyes, where if you start writing about it, you learn. If you publish it online, you learn. And besides the learning aspect of writing and sharing your expertise, you also get opportunities to do business with people. You get job opportunities if you ask for it in some point. You will build an audience, and eventually over time that you can use that audience to build a business, to test ideas, to do customer research. There are a lot of benefits by a single activity, and that's what I think is very powerful from building a writing habit and sharing your expertise online. The guest content strategy framework is a way for designers to turn their expertise into a thriving business or career. Focuses on categorizing your expertise. That's a category you position yourself in. And you have an audience you serve, where you try to figure out, okay, this is the situation they're in. This is the outcome they want to achieve. And these are the obstacles that are in their way of achieving that outcome. And you can turn that into sort of a solution frame, like how might we question, to start ideating solutions you can deliver to that audience to basically get career opportunities or business opportunities. And it's just a powerful way to stay in a very specific niche where your expertise is most valued. category is basically where you start to think about how can I categorize my expertise? Because if you want to get recognized for something, you really like to have a clear description of what you do or what you're the expert in. And to do that, you really must be self-aware in a way where you really understand what's valuable in your background, what expertise people valued in your career, and really build self-awareness around yourself by asking yourself the hard questions or people around you, but also observing your past in a way where you really have tangible results that reinforce your expertise. So you might be very good at doing customer journeys, for example. That might be a specialization you have and position around. That could be something very specific. That's eventually what we'll also dive into. It's more niching down. But first you want to figure out in what area should you niche down. And that really requires you to ask and observe what you're really good at, what you really love doing, what the world needs right now or needs in the future, and what you have noticed people pay you for. So if people don't pay you for it, you won't earn money. So it will be somewhat of a passion. If you're not good at it, people won't also pay you because you need to be good at what you do. Otherwise you won't stand out. And if you don't love doing it, you will probably find a hard time to do it for a very long time. And it's really where all these things come together that you really have a very strong category in. And it's very hard to find. A lot of people never find it at all. But the earlier you start exploring and becoming more self-aware of who you are as a person and where you're best and what the market really valued about you, why people hired you, for example, why clients work with you, and just really digging into that, asking them those questions, observing yourself, being really honest with yourself and trying to find a very small area where you might be most valuable. And the smaller that area is, the easier it is to become recognized for that. And the larger it is, the harder it is, because being recognized for design is a very huge topic. Being recognized for customer journeys in healthcare, that's way more specific. So it's trying to find those levers and areas where you're really the expert and trying to phrase those together in a category. And I usually work with clients and I really recommend them to make a list of the things they love doing, and I ask them questions about it, the strengths they have, what they think the world needs. It might be something like world hunger could be a very specific world need. The world needs to fix those types of issues, and you could focus around that by finding something in there where you can really provide value. But also, of course, what the market wants and what your track record really supports. So if you never worked in healthcare, it's not really smart to position yourself around healthcare. And of course, your personality, because there will be some areas where you're just a better fit for what you do. And it's just combining all those elements into a category where you feel comfortable in and you really can build authority around. So if you are more self-aware and you really figured out where you're uniquely valuable, where you're good at, what you really like doing, what you think the market wants, and have observed the market wants to hire you for example, you can look around these 11 elements you could niche down on. The first one is discipline. That's something everybody mostly uses. So let's say you're a designer. It's obvious to position around design. That's only one lever you could use to niche down. Next to that, you could also focus on a problem. Could be a conversion-focused problem or a churn that you are the expert on reducing churn, for example, or improving conversion rate. And then you're more likely to attract the type of businesses who experience those problems. Or you could focus on the industry. Could be finance, could be healthcare, or an audience where you focus on leaders only, or maybe it's millennials, maybe it's women. There are many ways to really niche down, or even the deliverables you create. So there are a lot of thought leaders around design systems or business for designers, like how to create a competitive analysis or how to create a customer journey. And that's something every business needs. So that's also something you could only focus on. And a lot of people already do that and find a lot of success in. But also the business type. So maybe you only work with startups or you only work with corporates. Those are very different type of business environments and things you could niche down on. But also distribution. So do they only serve customers? Do they serve businesses? Or do they serve businesses and customers? Could be many different types of businesses, and there are just a lot of them in the world. So it makes sense to find one you can deliver most value to. Or around the online platform like LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, there are a lot of people positioning around those as well, but not necessarily for design specific solutions. Or the physical location. So we really want to build the design space in France, for example, or in Amsterdam, that you really focus on that area alone, where you're more niche and maybe even speaking Dutch to them or French. So you resonate deeper with the type of people you want to help. And there's also a way to focus on revenue. So some businesses don't have revenue yet, or they have a lot of revenue. That makes more sense to solve a conversion problem for example. So you can combine all these elements. Or a funding level, that there needs to be a minimum of funding where it makes sense to come in as a design leader, for example. It usually doesn't make sense to hire a design leader when you don't have any designer yet. So that's also something to consider. Each element you could basically look at and list things and really prioritize things to position yourself around and niche down in. So you get more specific in what you do and for who you do that. And that is really valuable. One example of design leaders, for example, positioning themselves. One of my clients helped increase ARR by 100 million by improving conversion rate by 1%. And by me asking that to him and observing that fact, it might make a lot of sense to position him around increasing conversion rate, because he made such a big increase for one of his clients, and there's like literal proof he did it, and he can use that to get more clients. And that's a way to build authority around a very small problem, basically. And you could even get more specific by looking at the industry he's working in. He was working in hospitality. You could go more niche by focusing only on hospitality. It's a way to look at these things and try to go as niche where it makes sense for you. David C. Baker is a positioning expert, and he really recommends being in a space where there are 2,000 to 10,000 prospects. So there are 2,000 to 10,000 potential clients you could serve, and there are 20 to 100 competitors. So it also proves there's demand for a very specific form of expertise. And that shows if a niche can be profitable or not. But it really is about finding a place where you are uniquely valued, where you have proof that you are uniquely valued in that space, but you also love doing that type of work, so you can do it for longer periods of time, and you will continuously develop your expertise and become way more clear to the people you're serving, but also to the people around you in the world, to really show design is valuable. The second part of the CAS content strategy framework is the audience. You really need to specify and research the audience you want to serve, because if you really don't understand the audience you're serving, it becomes very hard to share your expertise in a way they understand it and really resonate with them and attract their attention. I usually recommend my clients to start with an ideal customer. Most of my clients want to start a business eventually, or a lot of them maybe want a better job, and that could also be your ideal customer, the people who eventually hire you. So I usually look at, okay, does this audience have painful problems I can solve? Do they have purchasing power that they can afford my expertise? Are they part of a growing market? Are they the decision makers? And are they easy to target? And that really are must-haves for me to pick an audience. But then next to that, it's also important for me to look at it. And is it like, do I want to work with them? Do they provide valuable network access to them? Do they help increase my influence in a way? Are they within my direct network? Do they have problems I love solving, or do they have problems I hate solving? I think those are things to really consider when you're going to focus on an audience. And once I've picked a very specific audience, for me, I start with designers, because I really love being around designers, and I wanted to improve the value designers can give to the world. So I wanted to help them achieve that in a way where I want to achieve that. So it's sort of a shared desired outcome. And that really made me motivated to start working with designers. Then I really start looking at their current situation. So I noticed designers, they really fail to sell themselves often. They fail to articulate their value because they have a form of imposter syndrome, and they need to overcome that imposter syndrome to really get the benefits they want. Like they want business leads, they want opportunities, they want a new job, and that's an outcome they want to achieve. And for me, it was picking one of those outcomes and looking at it and thinking about, okay, what's currently in their way for them not achieving that outcome? And those are the obstacles. And those obstacles might not be real, they might be just in their head, but it's something I need to help them overcome. And if I help them overcome these obstacles, will they achieve the outcome? And if they do, I can provide value to them, and they are more likely to pay for that if I can prove that to them that I can help them achieve the outcome they want to achieve. So that's something I always find very important, to have like a very specific audience in mind and figuring out, okay, where are they at? Where do they want to go? What's currently in their way of getting there? And that's basically what you help them do by figuring that out. The last part of the CAS framework is the solution part, where you really look at, okay, are they currently at? Where do they want to go? What's in their way? And trying to frame that in a question to generate very audience-specific solutions. And solutions are like, how might we questions? It's just something you start with to start generating ideas. I use it primarily for content ideas, and it's basically like how to get to an outcome without a certain obstacle, or how do I do this activity without experiencing this obstacle? And then I can start generating ideas to help them overcome the obstacle or get the outcome. And that's a very simple way to start generating content ideas, and eventually put this into a framework which I have, which is called the GTC framework, which we'll dive into later, to really start generating ideas based on the solution frames you have, where you can put it through a format and you get a lot of ideas out of it. So after you finish the CAS content strategy, you've defined a category for yourself, you started focusing on audience, and you framed solution frames to start generating ideas. And for generating ideas, I use the GTC funnel framework. It's a way for me to generate endless ideas, but also create ideas that are relevant to my audience because they're based on their obstacles, outcomes, and their current situation. And first, it's basically focusing on growth, like how can I write content so I grow my audience? And after you grow your audience, you can look at, okay, how do I build trust with this audience? And then eventually you look at it like, how can I convert that audience into opportunities for myself by creating more conversion-oriented content? So the G in the GTC funnel framework is growth, basically to grow your network or your audience. And that really aims to build an audience for yourself. And I usually recommend people to do 1 to 5 posts a week of that. I personally do 7 posts a week, and 4 of them are growth-oriented content. And I usually measure success in that content by the number of impressions I get, the number of new followers I get, the number of connection requests I get, but also the type of people who are following me and the people that are connecting with me. Like, am I reaching the right audience? And examples of the type of content is personal stories about yourself, resources you use, the lessons you've had, observations you had about the industry, traits you value in other people, news that's currently up, or trends, for example, things that have a wide appeal to the audience you're trying to get to really grow a bigger audience, to increase the odds of reaching the right people. The second part of the GTC funnel framework is the trust part. And the trust part is really to establish your expertise with the audience you already have, to really show that you have expertise that's valuable to them. And I measure success by looking at the number of questions people ask me, the messages they send me, the way they engage with me. And that's a way for me to gauge interest in a very specific form of expertise I might have, and to really see if it attracts the right people and builds trust with the right people. Because if it doesn't, I might need to iterate on that content to show more of my process, for example, to create more value to my audience. Examples of trust content formats are case studies, are breakdowns of a very specific industry, white papers, for example, or you give a very specific point of view on something that's in the news, or you create a guide like how to become a designer in 2014 to show your expertise around a very specific topic. And then there are also people who write like very strong essays about topics or common things that people are experiencing, where they really get across a point of view and establish themselves as experts in the category they are trying to claim. And the last part of the GTC funnel framework is the conversion part, and that really aims to get opportunities your way. And that is usually in the form of leads, people you can reach out to, basically. And it really is defined by the number of leads you get, the number of revenue you create, or the number of product sales or recruiters that are coming your way. but also looking at what is the quality of the people who are coming towards me. Am I attracting the audience I'm trying to attract? And does it get me the opportunities I want to get? And that's something very important to consider. And could be very specific in the content you create. It could be an offer, like today I'm doing a workshop on design systems. That could be like an offer you make within one of your posts, sign up here, or shoot me a message when this happens. Or it's really like a very specific landing page to go to this landing page to see what I have to offer, to get people to get in touch with you so you can reach out to them and learn from them. After you understand the GTC funnel framework, you can start using those formats you get from that ID generation activity to start creating content. And I use the hook reward prompt framework for that. It's a general content framework that you can use to create content, but I tend to focus on LinkedIn alone because it's a professional platform for designers, for all types of professionals, and most business owners are on there and people who are seeking for jobs. So it's a very good place for designers to start sharing their expertise because they are more likely to get recognized there. And this framework really is aligned with social media design principles, where you want to hook the attention of people and then you want to reward those people for paying their attention so they can keep on reading your content in a way. And you want to provide value so you also build trust with them to eventually prompt them to think about something, to maybe do something, to send you a message or go to your website or something else. That's something you want to do at the end by giving them a next step they can start executing on. So the first part of the hook reward prompt framework is to hook your audience in the right way. And on LinkedIn, the hook in total is pretty broad, but there are two elements you have influence over. Let's first start in total, which the entire post shows your profile. It shows sort of the title of the post, or the headline, you can call it, where people have to click on see more to see the rest of the content. So you have to be sparking their curiosity, evoking their emotion, or talking like directly to a specific audience. Like in this example, I'm using design creators. So people are more likely to read it if they see this. And then there's also a visual you can add. You don't have to add a visual. That's also the benefit of LinkedIn, where it's very focused around the quality of the IDs, not really trying to catch somebody's attention for the longest possible time, but they really promote valuable IDs. And then there's also, of course, social proof under your post, where if your colleagues like the post, for example, you're more likely to engage with that post as well or see it, because it adds a social proof element to your piece of content. But that's something you don't necessarily have influence over, or you have people who might engage with your post early that you know. And hooks are basically sort of a value promise. So once you say something in the first line of your piece of content, you make a promise about what they can expect. So it's really important to think about the audience you're trying to serve when you're writing that content, to think about what are the outcomes they're trying to achieve, what are the activities they are commonly doing, what are the obstacles they're facing, so you are more likely to resonate with them. And that's something very important, to hook them in the right way and really set the stage and capture the right form of attention. So the second part of the hook reward prompt framework is the reward part. If people start paying you attention, you must deliver on that attention, because attention is worth something. You don't want to take somebody's attention and not give value to them or something they're searching for. So I always recommend to stay as concise as possible, to use every line to try and deliver value to them, give them reasons as to why what you're talking about is important, and really find ways to reward them as fast as possible, because the more you reward them, the more likely they are to return and engage with your content. Because if you're giving them something that's really valuable, they see you as a valuable figure, and they are more likely to help you in the future or start working with you. So that's something to always consider, like how can I reward the reader as much as possible by not wasting his time, giving as much value as I can, and being very clear in the way I communicate to him. So at the end of your content is basically a prompt. So that's the last part of the hook reward prompt framework. you want to prompt a relevant next step. So after you hook their attention, you reward them for their attention. You want to give them something they can do next. So maybe it's something they can think about. Maybe it's something they can do to reach out to you. Maybe they can ask you a question, or maybe they can answer your question. It's just a way to create more engagement and to really leave the reader with something they can do next. So it's also actionable in a way where they get the actual value of the information you're giving to them by giving them something they can do next and trying to make it very easy for them to do next. And that's something that's important, especially if you want to convert people or spark conversations with people or get people to follow you or connect with you. Those things, when you explicitly say it to the reader, they're more likely to do that. And that's something to always consider when you're writing. Once you've established yourself and categorized your expertise, you started focusing on a very specific audience. You started thinking about the situation they're in, the outcome they want to achieve, the obstacles that are in their way to achieving that outcome. And you started putting this into solution frames to start generating content ideas using the GTC framework. Then you can start writing. And I think that's the most important part, where you just start sharing your expertise. You start writing about your expertise. You start get comfortable writing about the things you are fascinated about, the problems you solve, the experience you've had, how you've helped people. I think that's very important to just get started as fast as possible, because the faster you start, the faster it compounds. And it's really a muscle you build. So once you start writing more, you will get better at writing, you will get better at speaking, everything will slowly get better. And I think over time you will see that the opportunities start compounding because the audience grows and you will get more leverage with every message you send. The effort will reduce because you've practiced something so many times that it becomes easier every single time. And you also store a lot of your ideas. So after 6 months of writing, you can look 6 months back and really take the same idea and make it a little bit better and republish that to really keep iterating upon your ideas. And over time, you will just get way better at this, and you will get more opportunities coming your way, and you will get clearer about the expertise you have. And it's something you will continuously get better on, and it will also increase your expertise in general to be more valuable to the audience you're trying to serve.